So first question is, examine the applicability of central place theory in contemporary times. And I'll give you 2 minutes. Think how you'll be writing. Okay. Very importantly, one important change in the question should be central place theory of Christaller first we are talking about. So this mistake of mine should also help you learn one thing, that in the examination there can be a question which can simply say central place theory. And this would mean that I would have to talk about application of both Christaller and Loschk if it is not specified. ठीक है ना? Okay. So applicability of central place theory of Christaller in contemporary time. Suppose if I had to write this answer, I will be talking about, always as we have seen, whenever you have to talk about the application of a theory, you will talk about application of the theory from two perspectives. Whether the theory applies fully, that we will test. And second, if it is not applying fully, because majority of the theories would not apply fully, because they are based upon certain simplifying assumptions. Still, we will be finding that the theory would have several important concepts. And those concepts would be applicable and useful. For example, you tell me, if we talk about, is the concept of threshold population very, very useful? It is applicable. Concept of centrality, it is applicable. So all the derivative concepts that Christaller talks about, they are still very, very applicable. Although the way he formulates the theory, the propositions of the theory, the hierarchy he talks about, there would be several questions. Okay? So when we are talking about the applicability of central place theory, it is tested in terms of, or in two parameters. Through two parameters we are testing the applicability of central place theory. One is the values of K. Value of K. Do they match? That is one thing we check. And second, what we are doing, we are checking it from the perspective of theoretical distance. Theoretical distance. So what is theoretical distance? It is the population of a CP, central place, upon, or to the ratio of population of a CP immediately below in hierarchy. So this, if you talk about, is basically the concept of theoretical distance. So it talks about the ratio of how much this population is, how many times of this population. This ratio is what we call it as the theoretical distance. Okay? Now, because Christaller calculated all of these, हमने इसके डिटेल्स नहीं पढ़े हैं थ्योरी के, हमने जस्ट उसको सुपरफिशियली देखा है. Christaller calculated for each of the settlements, he calculated the hierarchical systems, he calculated for all of them the theoretical distances as well. ठीक है. In fact, he found that in southern Germany there was 6 level of hierarchy which was present. So if we look into the application of the central place theory, इसको एक दो लाइनें लिखवाता हूं, कैसे लिखेंगे? You write first. Central place theory of Christaller is based upon certain simplifying assumptions and some perspectives like the least cost approach. Full stop. In the real world, such assumptions do not exist. Like the isotropic surface, the economic rational human, etc. Full stop. Thus, it is to be expected that when the model is applied in totality, it falls short. Full stop. This can be exemplified by taking a case study of its application in India. Full stop. When applied in India, it is found that the model is applicable only partially. With respect to both the values of K and theoretical distance. Values of K and theoretical distance. Change the paragraph. When the marketing principle is applied, taking into account the census classification of settlements in India, it is found that the theory is largely inapplicable in terms of values of K. ब्रैकेट में लिख लो, which should ideally be 3. Value of K which should ideally be 3. ब्रैकेट में लिखना है इसको. Full stop. In India, this value differs by quite a margin. For example, Class 2 cities of India, Class 2 cities of India serve more than 60 Class 3 cities. More than 60 Class 3 cities. Thereby making the value of K very high. Okay, so when we look into the hierarchy of the settlements which are there, India mein you must be aware, we have already talked about that census classifies the places into 10 type of settlement. Class 1, Class 2, Class 3 till Class 6 is the urban places, and then Class 7, 8, 9, 10 are rural places. Okay? 10 is the rural places whose population is less than 500. Okay? So there are 10 such settlements which are identified. If we take this as the basis, then we are finding that in below Class 2, each Class 2 city is serving about 60 Class 3 cities. Okay? So again it is what? It is the numbers are too big of K. Thus we find this problem is found at each level of hierarchy. Thus at none of the hierarchy we find that the values become K, or values of K become 3. So in terms of first parameter, what we are finding? It is not applicable when we take into account the marketing principle. However, when we take into account the criteria of theoretical distance, central place theory is found to be largely applicable. ठीक है, so लिख लो इसको. However, when the criteria of theoretical distance is taken into account, comma, the CPT of Christaller is found to be largely applicable with two exceptions. With two exceptions. Full stop. Ideally, according to the theory, the theoretical distance in marketing should be should be 1:1.72. It should be 1:1.72. That means the upper hierarchy central place is how many times? 1.72 times of the central place which is below that. Okay? So here what is found? Here it is found that this is the ratio which is found. क्या लिखा है हमने? एक मिनट मेरे को दिखाना हो सेंटेंस. should be 1:1.72, and in India this value varies from 1:1.41 to 1:1.83. comma, which is near to the ideal values. ठीक है? So देखो, there are two exceptions where this does not holds. And which are the exceptions? The exceptions are like this. So here lies the class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4 and class 5 and 6. 6 towns. And below are the rural settlements. So here you can see, here it is lying between 1.41 to 1.83. Here also it is same. So here the distance between these places is ranging between 1.1 is to 1.41 to 1 is to 1.83. But at two places it is broken where the distance between class 1 and class 2 towns is very big. And there is a very big rural-urban divide in India. Okay? So it is broken where? It is broken at two places. So लिख लो इसको. Actually इसमें एक थोड़ा सा change ये कर लो. I have written here class 1. It should ideally I should be writing here million plus cities. You write million plus cities, and here class 2 and other class 1 and other class 1 cities. So the distance we find that it is very high between the million plus cities which are growing at very, very fast rate. This material was given to you. ये दिखाया भी था मैंने पहले भी. Do you remember what we talked about? How the class 1 cities are growing compared to the other cities. And this growth of the class 1 cities is concentrated where? In the metropolitan cities. Not all class 1 cities. It is to be found. ठीक है? So much so that कि हमने ये भी देखा है that 10 million plus cities, those are which are having population more than 10 million. Only 3, but total population, urban population living in them is how much? Around 13%. There are 5 million plus cities whose population is 5 to 10 million. But how much total population is living in them? Around 10% of the total population. You can see here, there are 33 million plus cities whose population is between 1 to 2 million. How much people are living there? Only 12 million, which is less than the 3 major metropolitan cities of India. So how much is actually the distance when you compare it with the total class 1 cities? How many are total class 1 cities? 468 class 1 cities are there. But you compare them with 52 million plus cities, they have total 42.3% of the urban population. In class 1 cities, there is 70.2% of the urban population. That means in 52 cities, what is living? More than 40% of the total urban population is living. Rest, if you look into more than 400 cities, there is how much people living? Only 30% of the people are living. So the distance here between the million plus cities and the other class 1, other lower order cities is what? It is very, very high. Same is the case when it comes to the divide which is there between rural and urban. इसका देखना है तो you can understand. You can see this diagram. Can you see here the class 1 cities? Class 1 cities, this blue wala hai, this is growing. This is the number of towns in each of the size classes. They have been growing. Can you see class 2 towns are also growing? Can you see class 3, this green, also growing? Class 4 also growing. But there is 2 categories which are not growing, 5 and 6. Can you see that? So why this is? Because class 2 are graduating into class 1. Class 3 are graduating into class 2. Class 4 are graduating into class 3. 5 and 6 are graduating into class 4. So all these are growing, but graduation of rural areas to cities, transformation of rural areas to cities, it is what? It is a very slow process in India. ठीक है ना? And because of that, what we find in this class 5 and 6, the growth is what? It is negative in terms of number of towns. ठीक है? You can understand, I have talked about before also, that primarily the Shyama Prasad Mukherjee rural-urban mission is trying to do what? It is essentially formulated for accelerating this process of conversion of rural areas to urban areas. Okay? There, what they would be doing, they would be taking cluster of villages. For each cluster of villages, there would be a central village where some manufacturing would be local, cottage, other manufacturing would be planned. And definitely in this way, what will happen with that central village? Soon that would grow into a town. Okay? So what we are saying, at 2 places the hierarchy is broken in India. And one is the distance between million plus cities and immediately lower towns. And second one is the urban and rural divide. Okay? So this is the urban and rural divide. Urban and rural divide. So उसमें एक लाइन और लिख लो. The 2 exceptions found are related to million plus cities. Million plus cities which stand apart or which appear to stand apart in the urban or in the settlement hierarchy as primate cities. While the second exception is found at the lowest order urban settlements and the below located rural settlements. Which is reflective of the high rural-urban divide in India. High rural-urban divide in India. ठीक है? सो ये हो गया. दूसरा क्वेश्चन, दूसरा पॉइंट लिखते हैं. चेंज द पैराग्राफ. सो हमने अभी तक किसकी बात की है? मार्केटिंग प्रिंसिपल के कंटेक्स्ट में. सेकेंड इज द ट्रांसपोर्टेशन प्रिंसिपल. सो देखो, व्हेन ट्रांसपोर्टेशन प्रिंसिपल एप्लीकेशन इज टेस्टेड, when transportation principle application is tested, comma, it is found to be totally inapplicable. Totally inapplicable. Both with respect to the values of k as well as the theoretical distance. As well as the theoretical distance. ठीक है? So in terms of transportation principle, no applicability. If we talk about administration principle. So देखो, in terms of administration principle, administration principle 2, TOO2, the model is found to be largely inapplicable with respect to the 6-level administrative hierarchy of India. 6-level administrative hierarchy in India. Both in terms of values of k as well as theoretical distance. Values of k as well as theoretical distance. Full stop. However, there is one exception in the administrative hierarchy. Administrative hierarchy, which is found between or which is found at the level of district and tehsil. District and tehsil. Full stop. At this level, the ratio of tehsil per district is slightly over 6. Which is near to the value of k is equal to 7. Full stop. In terms of theoretical distance as well, the ratios are found to be near. The ratios are found to be near the desired value of 1:2.6. 1:2.6. ठीक है? So again, if you talk about this is largely not applicable. Here it is applicable. So in terms of district and tehsil, below that there is tehsil. So here it is applicable both in terms of values of k and the theoretical distance. But if you go in upper hierarchies, again we'll be finding it is not so much applicable. For example, if you take into account the hierarchy of state, below that there is district. So here k की value कितनी होनी चाहिए? 7. That means one state should serve 7 districts. यही होना चाहिए. But this average in India was found to be around 21. One state was serving on an average 21 districts. ठीक है? So it is very very large, the values of k. Similarly, one block और नीचे जाएं इधर, if you look into block, below that there is gram panchayat. So it was found that one block was serving around 40 gram panchayat on an average. So here also you can see that the value of K is much higher than 7. So the only place where in administrative hierarchy of India, this model is found to be applicable is district and tehsil. And interestingly here, both in terms of values of K as well as in terms of the value of theoretical distance, it is found to be applicable. Okay? So one thing we can conclude thus, in India what we find, as the assumptions do not exist in reality, the model is found to be only partially applicable. So we can conclude thus, in India, the assumptions do not exist in reality. The model is found to be only partially applicable. ठीक है.